Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our weekly Bhagavad Gita class. Let's start with the Mangalajan prayers. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakayam Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shwapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscham Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Ancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priyem Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So we have started chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita and we'll continue the discussion from there. So in the chapter 1 we have already seen the 4 arguments of Arjuna and Krishna is defeating those arguments in chapter 2 and 3. The first argument regarding compassion is defeated by the Atma Tattva discussed in the second chapter, which is the analysis of body and soul. We are not this body, we are soul, and the soul is always eternal and the body will eventually perish. So there is no need to be compassionate and Arjuna should execute his duty, his Kshatriya duty. Next argument given by Arjuna was no enjoyment. That if I kill my relatives, with whom I will enjoy. So Krishna has spoken this Sakam Karma, which is attainment of material enjoyment by doing prescribed duty. So if Arjuna performs his prescribed duty of fighting, then on winning he will get the kingdom, and if he loses he will get heaven. On the other hand, if Arjuna does not execute his duty and he does not fight, then he will incur blasphemy, dishonor and sinful activities. So even for material enjoyment, one has to do the prescribed duty. So that is the Sakam Karma section. The third argument is sinful reactions, and it has been repeated by Krishna's Niskam Karma Yoga argument or Buddhi Yoga. So Krishna explains that if Arjuna is doing his duty as a offering to the Supreme Lord without being attached, then there is no sinful reactions. So Niskam Karma Yoga will not give any sinful reactions. Now the fourth argument will be refuted in the third chapter. So after explaining the Niskam Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, Arjuna got a doubt in the beginning of chapter 3. So Arjuna's doubt was whether I should do action or enunciation, because Arjuna was not able to understand how one can perform the duty at the same time they are detached from the fruits of that action. So Arjuna could not understand this concept. So Arjuna was thinking, if I want to become detached from the fruits of action, maybe I have to abandon the action altogether. So therefore, Arjuna is asking that, please clearly explain me what do you want from me, whether I should fight or not, because it is very difficult to understand how I can fight at the same time I should not be attached to the fruits of the action. So now Krishna starts explaining. So in the beginning of chapter 3, Krishna says that there are two ways to attain self-realization. Lokesmin dvividha nishta pura prakta mayanagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So after Arjuna is asking this doubt, yes, so after Arjuna asks this doubt, the Supreme Lord explains that there are two different methods for achieving self-realization. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical and philosophical speculation, which is called the Sankhya Yoga, and others by devotional service or Karma Yoga. Now, devotional service actually means Bhakti Yoga, but here Karma Yoga is translated as devotional service because Karma Yoga is not complete without devotional service. The essence of Karma Yoga is to become detached from the fruits of your action. And you cannot do it unless you offer the fruits of action to Krishna. So that's that Krishna factor, you have to bring Krishna into the picture and offer your fruits of action to Krishna. Then that becomes devotional service. Then Krishna has explained that Arjuna, you should not think that merely by abstaining from work, you will achieve freedom from reaction. So here Krishna is criticizing the path of Jnana Yoga, that Jnana Yoga is not suitable for you. And Krishna is also telling that one who restrains the senses of action but whose mind dwells on the sense object certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. If you are not qualified for Jnana Yoga and still immaturely you are practicing Jnana Yoga, then you are a pretender. So this is the one half of the argument where Krishna is explaining, Arjuna, if you are not qualified for Jnana Yoga, you should not perform it. Then you will be called a pretender. You should better do Karma Yoga. On the other half, Krishna will explain that even if you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, then also you should do Karma Yoga, and we will see why. So here the important verse 3.9, which can be called the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Yagyarthat karma nonyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kvanteya mukta sangha samachara. So whatever we do, we have to do it for the pleasure of Krishna. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. If you do anything which is not pleasing or which is not meant for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, and we are doing something for ourselves, then that will bind us in karmic bondage and that will give us sufferings later on. So in this section, Krishna has described how Arjuna should perform Karma Yoga even because he is not qualified for Jnana Yoga. Now let's start from verse number 10. Sahayagra praja srishtva uravacha prajapati anena prasavishyadbham yeshavostishta kamadhuk. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with the sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, be thou happy by yajna or sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. So the yajna word is being explained further. So the general understanding of the word yajna is doing anything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. In common terms, we know that if we lit some fire and offer ghee and ahuti, that is called yajna. But that is only one category of yajna, that is called Agnihotra yajna. But yajna is a broader term, which is anything done for the satisfaction of Vishnu is called yajna. So now what is the effect of this yajna? If we satisfy Vishnu by performance of yajna, then what will happen? Then the nature, the demigods, they will also be satisfied with us and they will provide all the necessary resources and we will be very happy. So in some places, like the natural resources like rain and different jewels and grain produce, all these natural resources that depend on performance of yajna. One time in Africa, one of GBCs or one of the gurus of ISKCON, His Holiness Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj, went to preach in Africa. So because they were leading a very sinful life, because of that, long time there was no rain. There was no rain, and due to the lack of rain, there was no agriculture, no grains were being produced. And they were leading a very sinful life. There is no grains, they are hungry, they are starving, and they have to eat meat. They are even eating the insects. This is how they were leading their life. And Gaur Govinda Swami Maharaj went to preach in such a region. So seeing their condition that they are starving and they are leading a very sinful life, and because of leading a sinful life, their intelligence is polluted. Even if spiritual subject matter is presented, spiritual philosophy is presented, they will not be able to accept that. So Gaur Govinda Sai Maharaj started doing kirtan, that philosophy is not suitable for these kind of persons. So therefore, he started doing kirtan, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And after doing continuous kirtan for one day, long time back there was rain. And people were shocked that how rain is happening after a long time. So here also we will see that in this, here Krishna will also say that Anyad bhavanti bhutani parjanna dhanna sambhava. So in the verse number 14, we will come to that. That all the natural resources, including rain, actually results from performance of our prescribed duty. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, there is a similar episode when Prithu Maharaj came in the Satya Yuga. In the dynasty of Dhruva Maharaj, there was one king called Prithu Maharaj. And this Prithu Maharaj is Shaktyavyas incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Means he is induced by the energy of the Supreme Lord. He is not a complete incarnation, but he is a living entity who is surcharged with the potency of the Supreme Lord. So then Prithu Maharaj, in the episode of Prithu Maharaj also we can see that before Prithu Maharaj, another very atrocious king was ruling. His name was Vena. And because Vena was ruling in a very irreligious way, Mother Earth was hiding all the resources. And that time also there was a scarcity of resources. And when Prithu Maharaj came, his citizens were starving. So then Prithu Maharaj was asking Mother Earth, why are you hiding your resources? Then Mother Earth told that before you, this king Vena was ruling. And because he was ruling in a very irreligious way, I'm hiding my resources. So the Mother Earth is not ready to feed population who are sinful. Mother Earth do not want to maintain a sinful population. If the population, they are dharmic, religious, and they are leading their life according to the instruction of the Supreme Lord, Mother Earth will be very happy and she will also give resources very happily. So abundance of resources result from performance of our prescribed duty. So in a modern scientific analysis, we cannot understand this. This is a subtle thing. So this Earth planet is not some lump of earth or soil. It's not a lump of soil. The Mother Earth is a person. There is some person who is in charge of this planet. Just like there is a person who is in charge of the sun, moon, and different planets. So they are called demigods who are appointed by the Supreme Lord, and they are taking care of that particular aspect of the nature. Like Indra is taking care of the rain, Agni is taking care of the fire, like that. So similarly, this Mother Earth is also a person called Vasundhara. So she is maintaining the population based on how much they're inclined to dharma. Right? So therefore we can practically also see, like the example I gave, that Gaur Govinda Sai Maharaj went to Africa for preaching. So long time back there was rain, because in Kali Yuga, what is Yajna? The prescribed duty for Kali Yuga is Harinam Sankirtan. Therefore it is called Sankirtani Yajna. Te yadhyayato Vishnum Tretayam Jajato Makhe Dwapare Paricharayam Kalota Dhari Kirtanat. In the Satya Yuga, the prescribed duty is meditation on Vishnu. In the Treta Yuga, the prescribed duty is doing fire sacrifices. In the Dwapar Yuga, the prescribed duty is worshipping the deity form of the Lord. And in the Kali Yuga, the prescribed duty is the performance of Sankirtana Yajna, or chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So chanting of this mantra helps us in a social scale. Like everybody, if maximum of the population chants this mantra and thereby they follow the prescribed duty, so we can see the global consequences of chanting of the holy names, that the Mother Earth will provide more and more resources and we can live happily. This effect can be also seen in individuals. So we can also see the individual consequences, that if I chant this holy name, because this is the Yuga Dharma, all my necessities will be fulfilled by the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord promises in Bhagavad Gita, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana pariyupasate, tesham nitya vijuktanam yogakshemam bahamyam. If someone Ananyas chintayanto mam je jana pariyupasate, if someone is worshipping me by following this prescribed duty of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Ananyas means continuously, not like today I feel like chanting, therefore I chant, and then I do not chant. No, this has to be regular. If somebody is worshipping the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra regularly, then the Supreme Lord takes care of that person. So we can feel these consequences individually and also in the global scale. So that thing is being explained here, that if we perform yajna or the prescribed duty for the satisfaction of Vishnu, then all our necessities will be provided by nature on a global scale and also in the individual scale. Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantu vam parasparam bhavayanta shreya paramavastyatam. The demigods being pleased by the sacrifices will also please you. And thus, by cooperation between men and demigods, prosperity will reign for all. So just like performance of yajna means satisfaction of Vishnu. So satisfaction of Vishnu means satisfaction of the demigods, because they are different administrative managers of the Supreme Lord. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, there is also another verse that Jatha Tarur Mula Nishechanena Tripyanti Tat Skanda Bhujopashaka Pranopaharatya Jathindriyanam Tathaiva Sarvarhanam Achyudeja. So the same thing is being discussed here, that there are so many demigods, because the universal management is a very great thing. There are so many departments and there are so many aspects: creation, maintenance, destruction, and within maintenance also there are multiple things: providing rain, and then Agni, Vayu, all those different aspects are there and they are being taken care by different demigods. So we owe many things to different demigods, but we cannot worship them individually. There are too many of them. So then what to do? Perform yajna. And yajna means satisfaction of Vishnu, because Vishnu is the leader or the source of all the demigods. If you satisfy Vishnu, then automatically all the demigods will satisfy and they will provide abundant resources. And then there will be no scarcity. There is also another event from Mahabharata we can recall, that one time when Pandavas, they were in the Vanavas, exile. That time Durvasa Rishi came with so many disciples. But Pandavas, they are leading a very simple life in exile, and they themselves do not have proper food. Sometimes they have food, sometimes they have to starve. And now this Durvasa Muni is coming with 60,000 disciples. And it is a duty for a householder to welcome the saintly person and their disciples and to feed them sumptuously. So Pandavas, especially Yudhishthira, Bhim, they become very worried that how will we feed these 60,000 disciples of Durvasa Muni? We ourselves do not have sufficient food. So then Krishna comes, and Krishna was given one Tulasi Patra by Draupadi. One Tulasi leaf Krishna accepts. And when Krishna accepts the Tulasi leaves, Krishna is satisfied. And by the satisfaction of Krishna, all the 60,000 disciples of Durvasa, they are feeling their stomach is full and they are denying any kind of food, that we cannot take any food because we are already feeling full. So this happens. If Krishna is satisfied, automatically everyone is satisfied. So we also want pleasure in this world and therefore we go here and there, but still we are not satisfied. But if we can satisfy Krishna, then we will also be satisfied. The demigods will also be satisfied. Everyone will be satisfied by the satisfaction of Krishna. So therefore the yajna is very, very important. Ishtan vogan hi vodeva dasyante yajna bhavitam tyardattan aparabdaibhyo yo bhunkte stena evasham. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, will supply all necessities to you. But he who enjoys such gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. So if we worshipping the Supreme Lord, then they will be happy and they will provide abundant resources. But there are some persons who do not perform yajna. The Supreme Lord, being very, very merciful, he is supplying the resources to them also. Like the Supreme Lord is giving oxygen, grains, and all the necessities to even atheists. But because they are not paying back, so they are increasing their debt. And increase of this debt will cause their pious activities to decline. So they are increasing their sinful credit and they are declining their pious credit by not acknowledging the resources. They are receiving the resources, they are enjoying the resources, but they are not acknowledging. And because of that, their pious credit is declining and their sinful credit is increasing. So how can we pay back to the demigods? The process is very simple. Perform yajna, satisfy Vishnu, then all the demigods will be satisfied. And therefore, this is very, very important in this verse of 3rd chapter, 13th verse. Krishna says the importance of offering food. Whenever we accept some food, this is very, very important to offer that food to the Supreme Lord and accept them. If we do not offer the food to the Supreme Lord, then it has some karma. And if we eat that, we are incurring some sinful activity because the nature is providing us so many things. And we assume that all these things are for my enjoyment. The nature is producing grains, water, and so many things, fruits. We accept in a mood that, okay, the whole nature is meant to serve me and nature is producing this for my enjoyment. But that should not be the attitude. That should not be the consciousness. Our consciousness should be the Supreme Lord mercifully is providing me with so many resources and I should be grateful to the Supreme Lord. So even if we are taking non-vegetarian food, that causes violence and that is obviously sinful and we have to suffer for that. But even if we are taking vegetarian food without acknowledging to the Supreme Lord, that is also sinful. Because it's like the Supreme Lord has given and we just take without his permission. So this is called stealing. If we take something without acknowledging the person, without taking consent from the person whom it belongs, then this is stealing. So therefore, this says stena eva in the previous verse. The word stena means a thief. So therefore, this is very, very important. Whatever we accept, whatever we eat, should offer that to the Supreme Lord. Then it becomes purified. Therefore, prasad is called sanctified food. There is no karma associated with that. And if we are not offering the food, even vegetarian food is bringing us sinful reactions. Yagya sishta shino santo muchante sarva kilvishai bhunjate te tu agham papa je pachanti atma karanat. Yagya sishta shino santo. The word santa means the devotees. What the devotees do? Yagya sishta shina santo. The devotees take remnants of the Supreme Lord. They offer it to the Supreme Lord. So anything done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord is called yajna. So yajna sistasina means whenever I have to eat, I should offer that food to the Supreme Lord and then accept the prasad. And the devotees do that. Yajna sistasino santa. And by that what happens? Muchante sarva gilvishay. They become free from all sinful reactions because they are offering the food to the Supreme Lord. So by offering the food to the Supreme Lord, when we eat, there is no new karma generating. And also because this is a mercy of the Supreme Lord and I'm accepting the mercy of the Supreme Lord, all my previous sinful activity, they are also getting destroyed. So by accepting prasad, no new karma is generated and all my previous sinful activities are getting destroyed. And on the other hand, if you do not offer the food to Krishna, then what will happen? Bhunjate te tu agham papa. Je pachanti atma karanat. Atma karanat means if we are cooking for our own sense gratification. Whenever we cook, we have to think, I am cooking voga for the offering of the Supreme Lord, and then I will accept prasad. But if we do not have that attitude and if we are cooking for ourselves, for our sense gratification, for the pleasure of our own tongue, Atma Karanat, Je Pachanti Atma Karanat, if we cook or prepare food for personal sense enjoyment, then what happens? Bhunjate te tu agham papa. With every morsel of food, we are taking sinful reactions. We are verily eating only sin. And if we are taking sinful activities in every morsel, how can we expect happiness? So we will never become happy. And all different complications will come into our life. The complications which are coming in our life, the obstacles, the hardships, they're because of these sinful reactions. So therefore, we should try to minimize the sinful reactions. And one way of doing this is whenever we take food, we have to offer it to the Supreme Lord and then take. So that will not generate any new sinful activity and will also purify us from previous sinful activities. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhava yagyad bhavati parjanya yagya karma samudbhava. All the living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yagya or sacrifice. This example I have already given you. Practically, it can be demonstrated that if prescribed duty is performed, then all the natural resources, like rain is also one natural resource, will be provided to us. And yagya is born of prescribed duties. So this is a very nice verse. It says, Annad bhavanti bhutani. Bhutani means the living entities, they rely on the anna, grains. By taking grains, they get energy. Now, the living entities rely on anna or grains. How grains are produced? Grains are produced by rains. Parjanya danna sambhava. And how rain is produced? Rain is produced by performance of prescribed duty. Yagyat bhavati parjanya. If we are performing our prescribed duty, all the natural resources like rain will be provided. And how to perform our prescribed duty? Yagya karma samudbhava. The prescribed duty or yagya means doing anything for the satisfaction of Lord. So that means we have to just perform our prescribed duty for the satisfaction of the Lord. And in this Kali Yuga, what is our prescribed duty? In the Kali Yuga, prescribed duty is Sankirtana Yagya or Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this has a great science. Why the chanting of the holy name is recommended? Because this is the Yuga Dharma. And automatically, if we do practice this prescribed duty for this age, all the necessities will be provided into our life. Even if difficulties are coming into our life, we will be provided with sufficient strength to counter that difficulty. So all the necessary things, strength and courage and whatever we lack, Supreme Lord will provide that if we are constantly chanting the holy names. So it does not mean that I just chant the holy names and I do not perform any duty. Arjuna was trying to do that, but Krishna did not allow. So we have to do both things together. In the 8th chapter, Krishna will say, Ma manushmara yuddhaja. We have to always think of the Supreme Lord also. And at the same time, we have to execute our duties also in this world. Both we have to continue. Then we will experience happiness. That is the secret of happiness. So the 15th verse says, Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagye pratishtitam. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, all pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the act of sacrifice. So the essence of Vedas is yagya. Yagya means perform every activity for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. This is the essence of the Vedas. Verse 16. Evam pravrittim chakram nanuvartayitiyaya aghayurindriya ramo mogham partha sajivati. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. So if we do not perform sacrifice or if you do not perform yagya, Yajna means what? If you do not perform activities for the pleasure of Vishnu, that itself is a sinful life. Okay. We generally think doing murder is a sinful activity and doing such big crime is a sinful activity. But no, if you do not perform yajna, that is also sinful. If you are living without performance of yajna, we may think I am not doing any harm to anybody. So I am not doing any sin. No, we do not know the definition of sinful activity. If we are not doing a yajna, then we are actually doing sin. So therefore, always we have to see that all our activities are directed to the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. Then we are immune from sinful activity. If some activity is not done for the satisfaction of Vishnu, that is sin. So, and that will cause us sufferings in this lifetime or in the next lifetime. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. And all his life he just struggles and does not get any peace or happiness. So this sense gratification is a foolish thing and we have to understand. That is the message of the Gita throughout. That do not act for your sense gratification, act for the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Then automatically your senses will satisfy. Okay, text number 17. Jastvatmaratirev syad atmatriptascha manava atmanyeva cha santushtas tascha karyam na vidyate. Now Krishna is telling, so in the first half of the third chapter, we have seen that Krishna was telling Arjuna, oh Arjuna, if you are not qualified for Jnana Yoga, then you should perform Karma Yoga. Now Krishna is telling who is qualified for performance of Jnana Yoga. One who takes pleasure in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is situated or who is satisfied in the self only, fully satiated. For him there is no duty. So what does it mean? That one who takes pleasure in the self, how can one take pleasure in the self? What does it mean? So the meaning is, for such a person, he does not have to go to the external world for happiness. Sometimes we go to see movies, go to different scenic places, and we do so many things in this external world to get happiness. But a person who is Atmaram, or who is a very qualified person, like in the stage of Sthita Pragya, that person takes pleasure in the self. Just by sitting in one place and meditating on the Supreme Lord or chanting the names of the Supreme Lord, remembering the Supreme Lord, he will be happy. And he will get infinite happiness from that. He does not need anything in the external world. So that is the meaning of a person who takes pleasure in the self. Even if the external world collapses, there is no problem for this person. Suppose in the external world, there is no beautiful places to visit. There is no cinema halls. There are no friends. How will be the life? For an ordinary person, this will be a miserable life, a hellish life. But for an Atmaram person, he has no problem. Even if the external world collapses and it becomes very bad, there is no scope of enjoyment in the external world, this person will not be affected. That is the definition of a person who is satisfied in the self or who takes pleasure in the self. So Arjuna, if you have reached this stage, then you are qualified for Jnana Yoga. If you are not qualified, if you have not reached this stage, you should not perform Jnana Yoga. So that's the message given by Krishna. But now, Krishna will also say that even if you are in this stage and you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, still you should not perform Jnana Yoga. And that is very interesting. Why Krishna is prescribing Karma Yoga even for the persons who are qualified for Jnana Yoga? That is a very interesting subject. And that is the answer of Arjuna's fourth argument. Just try to understand. Text number 18. Naivatasya krite nartho na krite neha kaschana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidartha vyapashraya. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work. nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. So this is again the qualifications of the person. A person who has reached the stage of Atmaram, he does not need any other living being. Sometimes people, like I have seen many people are complaining in this age that I am feeling lonely. The one reason is people have become very, very selfish and they only associate with others if there is some motive. Otherwise, they do not associate. They are very, very self-centered. And this has to happen in this Kali Yuga because this is a Kali Yuga. Everyone is self-centered and selfless persons are decreasing. In this Kali Yuga, only devotees are selfless, who are reaching out to other person, listening to their problems and trying to give solution to their problems selflessly. They do not have any agenda. They are doing this because by doing this, the Supreme Lord will be satisfied. So devotees are the only species who are selfless in this world. And therefore, many people are complaining of loneliness. But if we are able to achieve this stage of Atmaram, and how we can achieve? Very simple, by following this Bhakti Yoga. Why such a person achieves this stage of Atmaram, that he does not need anybody? Even if there are no friends, the person will not complain of loneliness. Why? Because by performance of devotional service, he has developed a relationship with Krishna. And developing relationship with Krishna means having millions of friends. Krishna is not an ordinary person. So if you have friendship with Krishna, then it is equal to having a millions of friends and you will never be bored and you will never feel alone. So this is a very wonderful experience. When we become sufficiently Krishna conscious, we do not need anybody. Our dependence on this material world decreases. So therefore, a self-realized person, he has no duty. Even if he does not perform any duty, there is no problem. He is already satisfied. But Krishna is telling, nor has he any reason to not perform such work. He does not have to perform. He is not in a need to perform duty, but there is no harm for him to perform duties also. So whether he performs duty or does not perform, it does not matter to such a person. And he is not dependent on any other living beings. So that is the stage of Atmaram that Krishna is speaking about. And in that stage, you are qualified for Jnana Yoga. Now Krishna says, Tasmad asakta satatam karyam karma samacharam asakto hyacharan karma param apnoti purusham. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the Supreme Lord. So in this stage, when one is situated in this Atmaram stage, he is not dependent on anything. And whether he performs duty or does not perform duty does not matter. So in this stage, actually, he can be perfectly detached. And with that detached mode, if he is performing activity, then he is just doing as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one achieves the Supreme Lord. So in this stage, if somebody is working, that is the perfection of Karma Yoga. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim asthita janakadaya loka sangraham aivapi sampyasyan kartum arhasi. Now Krishna is giving an example of the king Janaka, who is such a qualified person, Atmaram person. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating people in general, you should perform your work. So, although King Janaka is a qualified person, he is an Atmaram person. He does not have to perform any activities. Even if he does not perform activities, there is no harm for him. But still, he achieved perfection by performance of prescribed duties. Why? For the sake of educating people in general. King Janaka is a qualified person, Atmaram person. If he does not perform his prescribed duties, there is no problem. But because he is a king, he is a leader. If he does not perform activities, by following him, all the citizens also will not perform their prescribed activities. And the citizens are not qualified at the stage of Atmaram. So being unqualified, if they are not performing their prescribed duty, it is harmful for them. So just to educate people in general, even the people who are qualified for Jnana Yoga, they should also perform Karma Yoga. This is the answer. Right? I'm repeating again. King Janaka, although he is a very qualified person, even if he does not perform any prescribed duties, there is no harm on his part. But because he is a king, if he does not perform his prescribed duties, by following him, the citizens will also follow him, and they will also not perform their prescribed duty. Now, the citizens are not as qualified as King Janaka. Therefore, not performing prescribed duties will be harmful for them. So therefore, just for the sake of educating people in general, even the qualified people who are Atmaram, like King Janaka, they also perform their prescribed duties. And one who has already attained the Atmaram stage, there is no problem if King Janaka performs prescribed duties also. Rather, it is great because such an Atmaram person does not have any attachment. And from that detached state, if he is performing any prescribed duties, then that will not bring any sinful reactions. So for a person who has already attained the Atmaram stage, performance of work, there is no problem. If he does not perform, there is no problem. But performance of work is recommended because by doing that, he is educating the people in general. Clear? So for Atmaram person, both are no problem, even if he performs work or does not perform work. But performance of work is recommended because that will educate the people in general. So Krishna is clarifying this point again. Yad jadacharati shreshtas tattadevitaro jana shayat pramanam kurute lokastadanuvartate. Whatever action a great man performs, common men follow, and whatever standard he sets by his example, all the world pursues. So the leader should be exemplary. So like Janak Maharaj, they should be exemplary so that the common men can follow them. So therefore, he should not abandon the prescribed duties, because by following him, all the general mass will also abandon their prescribed duties, which can be harmful for them. In text number 22, Krishna gives his own example. He has already given the example of Janak Maharaj. Now, what about Krishna? Can we say Krishna is not qualified? Come on, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the most qualified person. What to speak of qualified for Jnana Yoga? He is the supremely qualified person. But still, Krishna is telling, even if I am the Supreme Lord, I also perform prescribed duties. Name parthasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana nana vyaptam avaptyavyam varta evacha karmani. O Shanapritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So the Supreme Lord is the biggest Atmaram. He does not need anybody. He is self-satisfied. He does not have any work, but still he is engaged in prescribed duties. Because why he is prescribed in, he is performing prescribed duties? For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. So the Supreme Lord is performing prescribed duties, being supremely qualified. Why? So that common man follows him and they also performs their prescribed duty. Jadihyaham navarteyam jatu karmanyatandriya mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. So here Krishna is telling that although I am supremely qualified, I also perform prescribed duties just for educating people in general. Now, in this verse number 14, Krishna answers the fourth argument of Arjuna. Usi deyuri me loka na kuriyam karma chedaham sanskarasya cha kartasyam upahanyam ima prajam. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all this world should be put in ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. Arjuna complained about unwanted population, and now Krishna is explaining that. And I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. So recall the fourth argument of Arjuna from the first chapter. Arjuna complained that if I kill all these soldiers in this battlefield, their wives and the female members of their house will be unprotected. And then some unscrupulous person will exploit them, and we will get unwanted population, unwanted progeny. Our next generation will become polluted because they are not from the Kuru dynasty, but from some unscrupulous person. Now Krishna is replying Arjuna that, oh Arjuna, you think if you fight, that will cause unwanted population? No, you are thinking wrong. If you do not fight, then it will cause unwanted population. How? If you do not fight, being a Kshatriya, being a leader of the society, Arjuna is a very big personality whom everybody admired. So being in a position of a leader, if Arjuna is not following his duty of Kshatriya Dharma, he is not following his Kshatriya Dharma, by following him, by citing his example that, oh, Arjuna also did not follow his duty. So performance of duty is not necessary. So normal general people will not perform their prescribed duty, and thereby they will become adharmic, and then unwanted population will be created. So Krishna completely proven Arjuna wrong that you think that by fighting he will be the cause of unwanted population, but the reality is if you do not fight, you will be the cause of unwanted population. So this is how Krishna is refuting the fourth argument of Arjuna. So now just see how beautifully Krishna has given the answer to the fourth question. So just a recap of what happened till now in the third chapter. So in the end of the second chapter, Krishna has spoken about Niskam Karma Yoga to refute the sinful reactions argument of Arjuna. Now Arjuna gets a doubt whether to fight or not, because Arjuna could not understand the concept well, that how can I perform work yet at the same time I am not attached to the fruits of the action. So Arjuna was thinking maybe I have to abandon the work itself, because it is not possible for me to work and at the same time be detached from the reactions of the work. So better I will not perform work. So now Krishna clarifies that there are two ways. You can abandon the work itself, which is the path of Jnana Yoga, and you can perform your work in a detached way, which is the path of Karma Yoga. Now Krishna has given two sides of performance of Karma Yoga. If you are not qualified for Jnana Yoga, then of course you have to perform Karma Yoga. Otherwise you will be a pretender, you will be a cheater. On the other side, if you are qualified for Jnana Yoga, then you have two choices. You can either perform or not perform. Both are good for you. You have no problem. Even if you do not perform, there is no problem. Even if you perform, there is no problem. But performance of prescribed duty is recommended even at the stage of someone who is qualified for Jnana Yoga, just to educate people in general. Because if a qualified person like Atmaram, who does not need to perform prescribed duty, if he abandons the prescribed duty, by following him, general mass will abandon their prescribed duty and they will become irreligious. And Krishna has given example like Janak Maharaj and himself. And this is how Krishna has proven the arguments of Arjuna. Four arguments are refuted in this way. Now Arjuna will ask a question. Now Arjuna is convinced that, okay, all my arguments are defeated. Now Arjuna will ask that, yes, Krishna, you were right. Even I knew all these things. But sometimes what happens? That we know what is right, what is wrong, yet we are not able to decide what to do. We know what is right, what is wrong, and yet there is some force which forces us towards the wrong direction. What is that force? So Krishna will answer this question. This is a very famous question, and we also face this. We know what is right and what is wrong, yet there is some unknown force which takes us to the wrong direction. What is that force? How to counter that force? That will be the next topic in our discussion. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we'll chant around together now.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radha Srivasadi Gaur Bhakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Is there any questions? Okay. So we can stop here and we'll continue from next week. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.